Are there risks in undertaking a program that massively cuts federal spending and, well, in so many ways, remakes the America we've known for the past 60 years? In other words, what are the risks when we dismantle a state system that has been really embracing and taking care of many different responsibilities in our nation? Is there a downside to it? A downside that maybe has not been explored? Let's get into it today. This will be a very interesting topic. And a very good morning to you. Welcome to, I think this is probably the fifth podcast in the series. No, I don't have a microphone hanging in front of me and all that. I don't need to set up the whole look of the podcast to flap my lips, but as we get underway, it's a reminder that a lot of these issues have been talked about on this channel for a couple of years, right? And they're finally coming to fruition. The main one being the laser beam focus on debt. Being ahead of the curve has been an advantage to a lot of people in the chat. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe and hit that bell for all notification, because, well, we're navigating some of the roughest seas that we have seen in years here, and, well, they promise to get a lot rougher too. So you want to be involved. So make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for all notifications. I was originally going to talk about Medicare, Medi-Cal, Social Security today, but I received quite a few inquiries saying, look, could you, all this stuff that's going on it's making my head spin. Are we sure that we're on very thick ice here when we're doing the things? Is the president on thick ice when we're doing things, seeing things done that have not been done for a long time, if at all? Massive cutting of spending and things like that. So I've kind of put that in today to discuss this, since it seems to be such a pressing issue and so many people are concerned. And the simple answer before we do the deep dive is yes, of course there's risks to it. I think the biggest overall risk is this idea of ego, right? That I know better than you do, and it's this way's the only way forward for America. And this is a program that must be undertaken to save America. Throughout much of the history of America, we've had a executive branch of government that's gotten a lot of people involved when major decisions are to be made. A lot of input from each side, because we know, well, they knew at that time that the things that they might do, things that they consider will have an effect on the economy and in life in general in the United States. And some of those things would entail unexpected consequences. So the first risk is that ego, pride, and a feeling of this salvation mentality could be a great risk to the nation, because, well, what if you're wrong? You know, it's not only you that are involved in this decision making, but it affects millions and millions and tens of millions of people in this nation, right? In other words, a populist agenda entails certain risks to it, right? Not thinking clearly enough ahead. I'm making no judgments as to whether things are going to turn out at the end, but I am concerned that things are being undertaken at such a rapid rate of speed that the economy may not be able to absorb the shock, and the shock might be so great to some parts of the economy that, well, debt structures start to crumble. And, well, companies that have been on the margin of borrowing and surviving may be imperiled here by cutbacks in spending. It's a very difficult situation. It's a very sensitive situation. We are a nation that is bloated with debt. And when you cut off revenue sources, say taxpayers to the Treasury and things like that, you endanger more and more of the debt structure, not only of the government sector, but the private sector too, credit card lending, automobile lending, buying homes and things like that. So the number one threat is ego that is unchained. Okay, whatever you're doing, it's not particular to President Trump, but I've been in business with executives that were embraced by management, especially in sales and marketing. Oh, they loved them, right? They'd go out there and sell, and push so hard that eventually they disrupted long-standing company relations with other corporations that would buy the products. In other words, it was too much. It was too much to think about all of that change. The other number two is unintended consequences. Right? We've spoken about this before. It's all well and good. We have almost $5 trillion of imports. $4.3 trillion of imports. We export about $1 trillion worth of stuff. So it's very easy to look at that and say, well, if we put a 20% tariff on the $4 trillion that's coming in, right, that'll put $800 billion in our treasury, and we have a chance to really, cut income taxes, do away with the personal income tax. The downside to that is a couplefold. Number one, you're cutting out your base of consumers right now with massive layoffs, right? The ability to consume imported products. And number two, you're making them more expensive, thereby potentially stoking the power of inflation, the forces of inflation. And number three, you're not recognizing the pushback that can occur when nations begin to put tariffs on the $1 trillion of exports that we send out. And let me tell you, we're not sending out Shine gear, Temu, cheap clothing, right? Manufactured pots and pans and durable goods and products like that, disposable goods. We're exporting a lot of really high value technology items, walking that fine line between national security and the latest and greatest, right? This is what the world really wants from us, is our computer, software, hardware knowledge, and they also want our armaments, right? It's a sad thing, kind of, that you build a country on armament sales, but it's a fact of life, right? It's the fashionable thing now to kind of build up and gird yourself for a war. So you start to experience tariffs that are put on by other nations as a counter tariff to the United States, and then we bring in that whole aspect of ego again, which could raise the stakes like a poker game if you've ever played Texas Hold'em and you're involved in a showdown on the river card. The last card, you'll know exactly what I'm saying, right? It reaches a point where everybody says, I'm all in, and let the cards fall where they may. Well, disaster is going to unfold for somebody. It's the same thing when ego overlays decision making. We can get into that same sort of situation. So we have to be very careful, and that's one of the unrecognized potential things that can happen, right? Number two is, and I talked about this before, the demoralization of a workforce. There's a difference between cutting with a surgical scalpel and wholesale coming in with a cleaver and just whacking everybody away in one fell swoop. What's the message that comes out of that? Well, the main message is We don't give a shit what the hell you say you were doing. Pack up your stuff. We've turned off your computer access. We want you to be out of the building by 3 o'clock this afternoon. Whatever the hell you were doing. Right? Massive numbers of people. Probably some measure them very creative people. Some measure them hanger-oners and wasted money being spent on them as just placeholders for job creation. Right? But the broad effect that you have on that introduces fear, and it introduces demoralization into the entire federal apparatus as people sit and wonder, am I next? Number two, in wholesale chopping everybody, we cut off some measure of creativity or some measure of people that may have been able to be of great benefit to our organization and our mission in the future. So demoralization is definitely a thing. We also see that in cutting federal jobs and reducing, I think the goal was, I don't know, is 10% or 20% of the workforce. That's 200 to 400,000 people, because the United States government is the biggest employer in the United States. There's definitely a knock-on effect for businesses that support the government and its endeavors, right? Farmers that supply grain and product for going overseas, U.S. aid and things like that. Tremendous amount of United States grown crops end up being processed and shipped overseas for the benefit of others and also for our exports, right, to help our balance of trade. Now all of a sudden we come to a situation where, well, the future is very murky now. We don't know what's going to go on. You know, we're contracted to grow 10,000 acres of soybeans. Now what the hell is going to happen, right? Or I'm supplying even something as simple as office products or something to the government, right? You start to see the ripple effects, services, right? Consulting services and planning services and purchasing computers and software programs. The knock-on effects start to be major. That's one of the other potentially unintended consequences. Not thinking deep enough to understand that with every dollar that's cut, there's going to be a proportional reaction within the economy and also within the psyche of people's minds, right? Now, what particularly saddens me over the last couple of weeks is there's a sector of strong supporters of what's being done, but they've almost taken this as an opportunity, to make sport of this whole process, right? And maybe that says something about the nature of our conflicted society today, right? That compassion, empathy, and things like that are, well, they're in perilously short supply these days, right? And that's on us as people. Right? These are people with lives. These are people that had hopes and dreams. Many of these people had dreams of making America a better place and have now been caught in the switches of, well, in many ways, I can blame an out-of-control spending machine that went crazy for 60 years in this nation. And, well, that's really where we should put the blame. By growing this whole society with a large amount of dependency on government and enabling people and putting into their head the idea that the federal government is responsible for everything, right? I mean, there's the true root of the problem, but we need to also have compassion to understand what is going on. This is why when people write me and say, why don't you just make a stand or whatever? You don't like Trump or you love Trump and blah, this and that. there aren't many. There aren't many independent thinkers left that are able to look at a situation and be dispassionate about examining it, not being weighed down by biases and things like that, right? You can find that stuff everywhere. But it doesn't push you to think on a deeper level. It just reinforces what you already believe to be true without opening yourself up to counter opinions and counter ideas, one or two of which might change your mind, right? In no way, shape, or form am I arguing for a socialist America. We've had that experiment for the past 60 years. There's no denying that government hasn't been involved in every single aspect of people's lives. Right? Telling people what they can do, what they can't do, how to relate to this person, that person, what you can teach in schools, what you can't teach in schools. Fundamentally remaking our society. So it augurs that suddenly removing all this is going to have almost a cataclysmic, almost a earthquake-like effect on people, right? People are going to have to adjust to the change. And what is popular today may not be popular tomorrow, right? I told people they couldn't understand for a couple days when I said, everybody is going to get what they want out of the next 4 years. If you want to see people happy that the fabric of America is being changed again to something maybe on the order of the 1950s, right? You're gonna be happy with what you see, right? There's other people that are going to be very distressed about that, right? The needle tilts a little bit to most people are happy because, well, their ox isn't being gored right now, right? They're out of the line of fire, but not understanding the dominoes that topple here. People believe the same thing in the 1930s when the stock market cracked up. A lot of people on the street said, are you crazy? You think I got stocks? Right? Only 3% of Americans dabble in the market. Are you kidding? It's not going to have any effect on me. I'm glad some rich assholes got wiped out in 29. Good. Right? Eat the rich. Right? Well, we saw how that turned out. The rich skated through just fine. Right? And it's the people at the bottom end that bear the brunt. Those of you who think that things are just going to crack up and leadership will be abruptly and dramatically changed in the future, you probably get your wishes too. But right now, we're just in the early days, and it's only a matter of time till everybody gets what he or she wants out of this time in America. But we should all hope that a better America emerges from it. We should all keep our ears open and our eyes open to allow ourselves to see differences of opinions and ideas about America. That's what really made this country great. When we didn't think that, I never grew up hearing red, blue. Right? I just heard Democrat, Republican. But one of my greatest memories is that people could work across the aisle and cooperate together. That's the America I want to see coming. Well, listen, thanks for listening to this podcast. Your comments are welcome down below. Love it, hate it, love me, hate me. I get it. We're going to be navigating terrifically dangerous waters in the years ahead. You want to be a part of it and get some thoughtful analysis. It's not steeped in rhetoric, steeped in positional politics, steeped in positional economics. Be a middle of the roader. Like and subscribe, hit that bell for all notifications, and leave your comments down below. Thanks, everybody.